Well, hello there. Thanks for joining us. If you're planning to sponsor your spouse to become a Canadian permanent resident, that is a common law spouse or a conjugal spouse or your wife or husband, you will want to know just how long it's likely to take for this application to be processed once it's been submitted to the immigration authorities. We'll have more information on this after the break, and do remember to hit the subscribe button and to check us out on our website at go.gooselaw.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My name is Donovan Francis, and I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer, and I help skilled workers inside Canada and outside Canada to become Canadian permanent residents without having to deal with all of the complicated immigration forms that are part of that process. Now, if you've become a Canadian permanent resident or you're now a Canadian citizen and you want to sponsor your spouse, be it a common law spouse or your married partner, you want to sponsor them to allow them to become Canadian permanent residents, then it is important that you understand just how the processing works and how long the processing time is going to be. So when an application is filed, meaning when it is submitted to the Canadian immigration authorities, the first thing that they're going to be doing is checking the eligibility of the person who is sponsoring. So that is the Canadian permanent resident or the Canadian citizen who is doing the sponsoring. They too have certain eligibility criteria that they must meet, that you must meet. And so the first thing that the authorities will be doing is checking to ensure that you meet the requirements that would allow you to sponsor your spouse to become a Canadian permanent resident. And this typically takes anywhere from 1 to 3 months. And it does not matter if your application is being filed within Canada or outside of Canada. So generally speaking, persons who are applying for their spouses to become Canadian permanent residents, depending on certain criteria, may submit the application within Canada or may submit the application outside of Canada. And I've gotten into the details of who can submit where in a separate video. But for the purposes of this video, for persons who have submitted their applications, once that application has been submitted, it typically takes about 1 to 3 months for the eligibility criteria, the eligibility of the sponsor to be verified. Once this has been done, then it will be on to verifying that the person, the spouse being sponsored, actually meets the eligibility criteria. And so the remainder of the time, the difference between the time spent on the sponsor's eligibility and the rest of the 1 year period, that duration of time will be spent verifying that the person to be sponsored actually meets the eligibility and completing the remainder of the process. And this 1 year processing time typically takes into consideration things like the time it would take to get your biometrics, assuming that biometrics information would have been provided in a timely manner. And by biometrics, we're talking about things like the fingerprints and photograph and so on of the person who is wanting to become a Canadian permanent resident. So again, for persons who are wanting to sponsor a spouse to become a Canadian permanent resident, generally speaking, the processing time is 1 year. Of course, this may vary depending on the circumstances at the particular point in time when the application has been filed, and other factors may impact this as well. Factors such as the caseload, the workload of the officers who are being asked to assess these files. And so those unknown, unforeseen variables must also be factored into the equation. But generally speaking, it typically takes a year for these applications to be processed and it does not matter if we're talking about an inland application or an application that has been filed outside of Canada. I trust you found this useful, and do remember to hit the subscribe button and to check us out on our website at go.gooselaw.com.